What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the relaunch of X Factor with issue number 1 by Leah Williams and David Baldian. And in this video, we are basically going to talk about the formation of this new X Factor team, and we're going to talk about why this team is potentially more useful than any other team on Krakoa. Yes, even with Dakin on it, or Dakin, or whatever the name is. Anyway, we're going to talk about all that and more right now. But first, wash your damn hands and let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Before we get started, if you want to see more awesome comic book videos like this one, it only takes 2 clicks to become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers. Click.
This team kicks off in a way that is very murder mystery, because that's kind of what this new X Factor team is all about. It is about investigating the abnormalities in missing mutants, just missing mutants in general. It's what this is for. This team isn't a team right off the bat. See, everything kicks off with the death of Northstar's sister, Aurora. Northstar gets a vision of the death of his sister. First, everyone's kind of dismissing this. Everyone's kind of, throwing us off like, oh, are you sure you saw what you saw? Are you sure that this is actually happening the way you think it's happening? But for Northstar, he knows this is in fact very real. He and his sister do share an incredibly close connection. And he is deadly serious in this moment because he knows that something's happened to his sister. He knows his sister is dead and he wants her resurrected. Now, where things kind of go squirrely here is that when he encounters the 5, he is incredibly dismissive to them, though he does bring up some points that make a lot of sense. The fact that the 5 are kind of treated as though they are gods. They're given all these gifts and all this worship and idolization. In some ways, it may kind of make them seem like they're more important than they really are. Though, the more you read this issue, the more you realize it's really not the case. It's not that they think they're too good to resurrect any and all mutants as, lickety split as soon as, they want to. The fact is that there are certain protocols that are in place. These are things we talked about during the House of X series. We talked about this in videos, literally. Also, I want to point out that one of the new things we see here in this in the resurrection protocols that was not addressed in previous mentions during House of X and Powers of 10 is that somewhere in there, and they kind of redact a lot of this so you can't really see what they're talking about, but it's under Article 7 where it does say that in the middle of all the redactedness of it, there is a statement where it says, does not wish to be resurrected. So this is, taking note of the fact that, yeah, there are probably some people who have designs on not wanting to be resurrected. So yeah, it's almost kind of like a mutant Krakoan DNR. But yeah, thought that was really cool. I do hate that we can't see a lot of this stuff, but I mean, it also kind of makes sense as to why we can't. But a lot of this stuff is stuff we already knew. And it's the fact that you can't just bring someone back just because you think they're dead or you got a vision that they're dead. They actually need proof. You can't just, and I actually really appreciate this line. I don't know if Leah Williams is a fan of the channel or what. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of smiled when Proteus of all people literally said something that I would have said. Just said, yeah, we can't be out here making duplicates all willy-nilly. I just want to go ahead and say, Leah Williams, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Yeah, call you boy. Point of the matter is that, yeah, they can't just do that. That would be reckless. That's honestly how you would create chaos on Krakoa, is by bringing people back who may not actually be dead. Now, because they have no actual proof that Aurora is dead, this leads Northstar on this kind of rabbit hole chase, trying to contact people who may know something. This leads him from talking to Sage, who points him in the direction of the Green Lagoon, and this is how he bumps into Lorna Dane, the daughter of Magneto, and of course, as we know, Polaris. And one of the things that Lorna tries to teach Northstar is that in order to take on a mission of this magnitude, you have to find the right people. And sometimes you can't just take the people who are perfect for the job because they may not be available. And then after you find the people who are available, then you figure out who's suitable. Now, this is actually, I kind of took this as a little bit of a dig at how a lot of X-Men fans, a lot of people who are reading Dawn of X, one of the most common things I see on social media and these comments and everything is how people always criticize who's on what team. And it's like, well, who's available? And it's not necessarily an excuse for why certain characters are, or anywhere. A lot of that comes down to who the writer is. Maybe the writer doesn't want a certain character on their team because they don't like that character and they don't want to write for that character. Just sometimes it is what it is. And sometimes a writer really likes a character and they just win the bid out on it. So it just is what it is. But yeah, this is kind of a nod to that. It's like, yeah, who's available? And right now, a lot of these characters, they are the only ones that are available. I mean, not the only ones, but they're just the ones that aren't already on another team. I mean, maybe say for, Prestige, but I mean, she's not really a member of Excalibur so much as she just kind of helps out with them. But they do bring in the recently resurrected Prodigy, who originally had lost his powers. It's good to have him back, and he's actually repowered. This definitely means he went through the Crucible, and there you go. He came out the other side of it. Prestige with her Warhound, amazing baby. Eye-Boy, and of course, they round out the team with the character Dakin, or Dakin. I don't know. I really don't give a shit. This team, in a lot of ways, kind of reminds me of the Hellions, though not for the same reasons a lot of people probably thinking I'm meaning. I don't mean that, this is a team of people with like dark past and messed up heads. No, that's not what I'm talking about. This is a team that is a team of convenience. This is a team that doesn't really jive with one another. These people don't inherently get along. They're people with very different personalities, and they all think that they have the right way of getting something done. And you're putting all these people in a room together. However, what I love about this is that it starts out with them butting heads and trying to like one-up each other on how they can do things. And over time, as they're looking for, Aurora, they realize they actually work really well together. Now, when it gets to the idea of Aurora, by their powers combined, they are Captain Planet, or in this case, Captain Investigation, but they are able to figure it out through Prestige's chrono-skimming ability, an ability that we don't really see her use as often as probably one would imagine. Prestige is able to see exactly what Aurora was up to in the motel room they trace her to, because apparently she just left Krakoa and just randomly got a motel room for random and sundry reasons. And even with Dakin, quotey fingers pumping the desk clerk at the motel for information, which is interesting to watch. I will admit, I have never been a huge fan of this character, like ever in life. I've always thought he was just a miserable, just terrible character. I hold him in about roughly the same regard as I hold characters like Kid Omega. If X Factor was literally just a book about every issue, Dakin just getting just iced, 86th, killed, murked, whatever you want to say. If it was just him getting killed every other issue, I'd be perfectly fine with it. This book would be 10 out of 10. Would read again. But ultimately what winds up happening is they wind up tracing her to a bridge over the Puget Sound, and they discover that her car was run off the road. And yes, she is very much, in fact, dead. She drowned. Now, that particular revelation begs more questions than answers, because one does have to ask, how was she not able to escape from the vehicle? I mean, she's never been known as having like super strength or anything, but I would imagine that something had to have happened that'll cause her to just stay in that car and drown. But now that the Five have the proof they need, they literally have the body of Aurora laying on the Arbor Magna floor, they can actually enact the resurrection. Now, here's the very interesting thing that I find about this is that now that, this new team, this ragtag band that have come together to investigate the disappearance of Aurora, they have presented the Five with a solution to the very problem they've been having this entire time. And that is dealing with all the people, this long queue of people who want their loved ones that, whether it's their family, whether it's their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their wives, their husbands, their sons, their daughters, whoever, they want these people back. But the thing is, in a lot of cases, they don't always have proof. They don't always have actual proof of the death. They don't even have proof whether or not the person is just roaming the countryside and, just not wanting to be found. They don't have any actual way to prove some of these, and it takes them forever to figure out and look into these things. This is why 16.5 million mutants are not resurrected. I mean, now, technically, yes, as a Veto of Empire, they are, but they're Marvel zombies now, so yeah. That's going to be interesting. I hope they actually address that at some point in this series, but yeah, neither here nor there. And now that they have all the information that they have, they figure out exactly what was going on. Apparently, she ran afoul of someone by the name of Eddie Avidan, a guy who has run afoul of many and sundry anti-mutant groups, and apparently this guy figured out who Aurora was and set her up for the fall. Unfortunately, he just didn't plan it out well enough because he ended up getting himself killed in trying to retrieve Aurora's body when it hit the Puget Sound. And it's while they're investigating this, they realize, wow, we learned all these different things, and if one particular cog in this wheel wasn't present, we wouldn't have figured out half of this information. If it wasn't for Eyeboy's ability to use any or all of his eyes to isolate a specific spectrum of vision, they wouldn't have figured out exactly where the car came from or where it was going. If Dakin was there, they wouldn't have been able to figure out about the brake fluid. If Lorna or Prestige weren't there, they would not have been able to extract the various and sundry cars from the Puget Sound and figure out what was there. Without Prestige, they would not have been able to follow her trail in the first place. And of course, without Prodigy, they would not have been able to backlog her supposedly non-existent social media, tracing things that she bought and figure out that she got to the motel in the first place. And they're literally saying like, dude, we could be the 92-93 Bulls. And when they bring this to the attention of the Quiet Council agrees that yes, the Five do need more help. Charles Xavier agrees. So does Magneto, even though technically he has his doubts. Though I think Magneto was just trying to make sure that the Five really know what they're asking for, their own personal investigation team. And one of the things I find really interesting in this is that during the Quiet Council meeting, Storm basically insinuates that Lorna should be the leader, but she doesn't want to be the leader because really deep down what we kind of learn a few pages later is that she doesn't really know herself. She's still kind of trying to find herself in the wake of, this new dawn of X and of course, her past. Like she has a lot of baggage that she's just trying to work with, and right now she doesn't want to be anybody's leader. So she nominates Northstar, who probably has no business being leader, because it's one of those things like he's basically presented to you in this issue as he is in most other cases. He's kind of brash and he's not really a people person, and so it's gonna be very interesting to see how this plays out. But Lorna's basically gonna be playing second fiddle, kind of backing him up, the Scottie Pippen to his Michael Jordan. Not saying that either one is Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen in terms of skill or ability, but just you get the idea. And of course, a lot of other crazy things come out of this. Lorna creates this this new headquarters, the Boneyard as Dakin likes to call it. So they have their own personal headquarters and everything, and it's great. And more importantly, Forge and Sage are going to be working with them to develop tech and monitor some of those transit channels and figure out what is legit and what is not when it comes to mutants who are missing or are presumed dead, and get that information to them so they can better help the Five. More specifically, Forge has come up with a little communication device that can kind of work like an emergency call box for people if they want to phone in a potentially missing or dead mutant, whether they want to do it anonymously or not. And what we learn is that no sooner than Forge puts this tech online, everyone has a request. And one of the things I appreciate about this is that, this is what this team is needed for. We have constantly, and I've had this happen in my comments. A lot of people say, oh, why isn't so-and-so back? Why isn't so-and-so back? Why is this character not back? Why is that character alive, but that one's dead? They actually took the time to resurrect so-and-so, but didn't take the time to resurrect this person over here. This is why this team is needed from a narrative perspective to kind of help, unmuddy some of those waters. And I like that. I like the idea of it because I think there's actually a lot of great stories to tell in the mutants who actually are missing or dead, or maybe even some cases where a mutant is alive that was supposed to be dead. These are the things that I think you can really tell a good story with here. Now, do I think this book is like Hellions levels of good? Do I think it's Marauders or X-Force or X-Men levels of good? No, not quite. I like this book a lot. I will say in the hierarchy and granted, this is only the first issue, so just kind of roll with me on this one. When I think about the levels of excitement I had for this book versus before it came out versus after I read it, there's definitely some change up there, because when this book was originally announced, I was kind of like, Funny thing is, I actually felt the same way about this book that I felt about Hellions when it was announced. I remember I was like, Hellions? Nah, I'm good. Hard pass. And then when the book comes out, I'm like, oh my God, this is like the best. Oh my God, this is my favorite book. So that happens. Now with this book, did I have that same reaction? Not quite, but I didn't have a negative one. I actually enjoyed this book. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep up with this one. And mostly because I like the creative team behind this. It actually has more to do with what I know the creative team is capable of with this comic versus, and maybe, you know, the premise as well versus what I'm actually seeing right now. Right now, I mean, yes, it's a good setup book. It got the idea out there. It let us know what's going on. And yeah, I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it. Totally here for it. There's a lot of potential here with this book. So yeah, I want to see more of it. There's also some other stuff going on in the book that I'm not really going into, but you know, mostly it's like little stuff. You know, we noticed that there's some very cool interactions I saw with Polaris, Magneto, some of the musings about, you know, what's going on with Lorna. And I will admit, yeah, the whole thing with Dakin, yeah, man, I will admit, Dakin, I normally don't like that character. I really don't. I normally hate his guts. I will say that how Leah Williams is writing him, he is far more tolerable than he's probably ever been. I'm not saying I get why he's a beloved character by some, but I will say that I vaguely understand why people have a passing interest in them. Anyways, let me know what you thought about X Factor #1 by Leah Williams and David Baldean. Wash your damn hands and sound off in the comments. So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in a buck, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus ultra!